Hello, this is Pastor James Jordan at the Rolling Roads Baptist Church in Greensboro, North Carolina, wishing you a happy Jennifer Brooks birthday. Yes, Jennifer Brooks' birthday is tomorrow, December 10th, I believe, if I've got that correct. I might be wrong, but I do remember that we had birthdays that were kind of close together. And so, happy Jennifer Brooks' birthday. I want you to be aware that though we remember Jennifer and think of her family often and pray for them, her influence, her positive influence, has continued online in the booktuber community. In fact, there's a hashtag We Love Jenny, which has been used to gather videos together over these past months, and there are over 100 videos there. There have been some projects that have been started, readathons and other things, as we continue to celebrate love of literacy and reading. And in that spirit, to help celebrate Jennifer's birthday, I wanted to, maybe you'll indulge me in just a few moments of reading a couple of passages, one from Ecclesiastes and one from our old Catholic monk Thomas Merton from Storey Mountain. So from Ecclesiastes chapter 7, I'll read these few verses. It's a poetic passage in this book, so some of you may be familiar with that. A good name is better than a good ointment, and the day of one's death is better than the day of one's birth. It is better to go to a house of mourning than to go to a house of feasting, because that is the end of every man, and the living takes it to heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, for when a face is sad, a heart may be happy. The mind of the wise is in the house of mourning, while the mind of fools is in the house of pleasure. It is better to listen to the rebuke of a wise man than for one to listen to the song of fools. For as the crackling of the thorn bushes under a pot, so is the laughter of the fool, and this too is futility. For oppression makes a wise man mad, and a bribe corrupts the heart. The end of a matter is better than its beginning. Patience of spirit is better than haughtiness of spirit. Do not be eager in your heart to be angry, for anger resides in the bosom of fools. Do not say, Why is it that the former days were better than these? For it is not from wisdom that you ask about this. Wisdom along with an inheritance is good, and an advantage to those who see the sun. For wisdom is protection, just as money is protection. But the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom preserves the lives of its possessors. Consider the work of God, for who is able to straighten what he has bent? In the day of prosperity be happy, but in the day of adversity consider. God has made the one as well as the other, so that man may not discover anything that will be after him. And now from our favorite Catholic monk, Thomas Merton, this passage that I hope you will enjoy from Storey Mountain. Which chapter is this? Chapter 3. Okay. Oakham, Oakham, the great gray murk of the winter evenings in the garret, where 7 or 8 of us moiled around in the gaslight, among the tuck boxes, noisy, greedy, foul-mouthed, fighting and shouting. There was one who had a ukulele which he did not know how to play, and Pop used to send me the brown rotogravure sections of the New York Sunday papers, and we would cut out the pictures of the actresses and paste them up on the walls. It's hilarious. And I toiled with Greek verbs, and we drank raisin wine and ate potato chips until we fell silent and sat apart, stupefied and nauseated. And under the gaslight, I would write letters to Father in the hospital, letters on cream-colored notepaper, stamped with the school crest in blue. After 3 months, it was better. I was moved up into the upper 5th and changed to a new study downstairs, with more light, though just as crowded and just as much of a mess. And we had Cicero, and European history, all about the 19th century, with a certain amount of cold scorn poured on Pio Nono, or Nono, I think. In the English class, we read The Tempest and the Nun's Priest's Tale and the Pardoner's Tale, and Buggy Jerwood, the school chaplain, tried to teach us trigonometry. With me, he failed. Sometimes he would try to teach us something about religion, but in this he also failed. In any case, his religious teaching consisted mostly in more or less vague ethical remarks and an obscure mixture of ideals of English gentlemanliness and his favorite notions of personal hygiene. Everybody knew that his class was liable to degenerate into a demonstration of some practical points about rowing, with Buggy sitting on the table and showing us how to pull an oar. There was no rowing at Oakham, since there was no water. But the chaplain had been rowing blue at Cambridge in his time. He was a tall, powerful, handsome man, with hair graying at the temples, and the big English chin, and a broad, uncreased brow, with sentences like, "I stand for fair play and good sportsmanship," written all over it. His greatest sermon was on the 13th chapter of 1 Corinthians, and a wonderful chapter indeed. But his exegesis was a bit strange. However, it was typical of him, and in a way of his whole church. Buggy's interpretation of the word charity in this passage, and in the whole Bible, was that it simply stood for all that we mean when we call a chap a gentleman. In other words, charity meant good sportsmanship, cricket, the decent thing, wearing the right kind of clothes, using the proper spoon, not being a cad or a bounder. There he stood, in the plain pulpit, and raised his chin above the heads of all the rows of boys in black coats, and said, "One might go through this chapter of St. Paul and simply substitute the word gentleman for charity wherever it occurs. If I talk with the tongues of men and of angels, and be not a gentleman, I am become as sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. A gentleman is patient, is kind. A gentleman envieth not, dealeth not perversely, is not puffed up. A gentleman never falleth away." And so it went. I will not accuse him of finishing the chapter with "Now there remain faith, hope, and gentlemanliness, and the greatest of these is gentlemanliness," although it was the logical term of his reasoning. The boys listened tolerantly to these thoughts, but I think St. Peter and the 12 apostles would have been rather surprised at the concept that Christ had been scourged and beaten by soldiers, cursed and crowned with thorns, and subjected to unutterable contempt, and finally nailed to the cross and left to bleed to death, in order that we might all become gentlemen. Anyway, happy Jennifer Brooks' birthday to all of you. May God bless her memory and her legacy.